Hello friends, and today's story is a bulgy double bill, 2 stories in one. It's not just my 2 bulgy stories tacked together, it's them re-edited, redone and represented for you all in one. But before I begin, I'm going to make a request. Please, 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 will you like and subscribe to the Lovely Place channel? Because without your help and support, I can't make videos. I rarely ask people to like and subscribe at the start of a video, but in this case, I'd really like to build my subscription base. Thank you very much, and we'll get straight on with the story. Bulgy is based on the Railway series by the Reverend W. Awdry, with illustrations by Robin Davies and Jerry Smith, and other illustrations created by Britt Allcroft, as far as I can make out. So here we are in the island of Sodor. This is a story about Bulgy the bus. He came to work on the island of Sodor during the busy season. He thought he was better than all the engines, so he tried to take their passengers away. It was the sightseeing season on the island of Sodor. The Fat Controller's engines were working hard. Their station was crowded with people. Duck, Donald and Douglas were taking passengers from the station to other parts of the island. Some passengers had been brought to Sodor by a big red bus called Bulgy. Bulgy looked at the crowded platform and frowned. "I wouldn't have brought more passengers if I'd known how many were here already," he said. "But they're all really enjoying themselves," said Duck. "Pah!" cried Bulgy crossly. Duck thought Bulgy was very moody. Bulgy was rude to all the engines. Every time he saw them, he shouted, "Down with the railways!" He said railways should be closed so coaches, buses and cars could do everything instead. The engines thought Bulgy rather silly, but when another bus arrived to take Bulgy's passengers home, the engines were worried. This meant Bulgy was going to stay on the island. Would he really get the railway closed down? What would the engines do then? Bulgy told the passengers that he could get them to the big station faster than the engines could. "That's rubbish," said Duck. "It's much further by road." "Yes," said Oliver, "but Bulgy says he knows a shortcut." That evening, Duck was about to start his final journey of the day, but he only had a few passengers aboard. He waited for a few minutes, hoping more would turn up, but none did. Just then, Duck heard a shout. Bulgy was leaving the station. He had a sign on his side saying, "Railway Bus." Most of Duck's passengers had gone with Bulgy because he had told them he was working for the railway. "Stop!" called the railway staff as Bulgy pulled away. But it was too late. "Yah, boo snubs!" Bulgy said as he roared away with the passengers. Duck and his carriages, Alice and Mirabelle, set off on their journey with the few passengers they had. "Bulgy is a nasty old thief," said Alice to Mirabelle. "He's taken our people." Duck knew they had to stop Bulgy taking their passengers. If it carried on like this, the railway would be shut down. He wondered what they should do, but Bulgy was about to be stopped. His shortcut led down a narrow road to a low bridge. As he rushed under the bridge, there was a sudden screeching noise, and he ground to a halt. He tried to move forwards, and he tried to move backwards, but it was no good. He was totally stuck. Cars and coaches beeped angrily at Bulgy because he was blocking the road. "A tall bus like you should never have gone down this road," they said. Bulgy's passengers were furious. "We should have gone with Duck," they said. "He would never have let us down like this. We're going to miss our train at the big station, and it's all your fault," they shouted at Bulgy. Bulgy didn't say a word. As Duck reached the bridge, a man appeared by the track waving a red warning flag. "Danger!" he cried. "A bus is stuck under the bridge." Duck moved slowly forwards. He saw Bulgy under the bridge. "So that's Bulgy's so-called shortcut," he laughed. Bulgy held his breath as Duck moved slowly over the bridge. "The bus tricked us," said Bulgy's passengers. He said he was working for the railway, but he lied. Can we go with you instead? Duck agreed and took all the passengers onto the big station in time for their train. The passengers promised they would always travel by train from then on. Bulgy was left under the bridge. He had to wait all night before he was rescued. He didn't learn his lesson though. He still thought he could take over the railway. But by then everyone knew that it was faster to go by train, so they all travelled with the engines instead. Bulgy decided to retire. He asked a farmer if he could live in his field and look after his hens. The farmer agreed. From that day on, Bulgy was much happier. The hens enjoyed hearing about his grand adventures on the bus route and how terrible engines were. They didn't know any better, and Bulgy felt proud because the hens produced more eggs than ever before. And that's the story of how Bulgy came to the island of Sodor. But now let's find out what he did after he became a chicken coop. Summertime is always a busy time for the engines on the island of Sodor. They carry visitors all around all day long. But one summer, the engines had a problem. Thomas and Emily were in the foundry for repairs, so the other engines had to work extra hard. "Oh, my aching axles," grumbled Gordon as he passed Percy. "I must find a way for us to carry more passengers," said the Fat Controller to Thomas and Emily. "We have more visitors than ever this year." "And fewer engines," chuffed Emily. "It's a double-decker problem," smiled Thomas. But the Fat Controller didn't laugh. "That's just given me an idea," he said. Bulgy was a big double-decker bus. He had been made into a henhouse after his naughty behaviour caused a crash. The Fat Controller drove straight to Bulgy's field. "Hello, Bulgy," said the Fat Controller. "How would you like to be back on the road again?" Bulgy was very excited. "Thank you, sir," he cried. "I'll be the best bus ever." Thomas was surprised to see Bulgy. "I'm going back on the road," explained Bulgy. "Good for you," said Thomas. "The farmer needs a van to deliver his vegetables around the island." "Vegetables," said Bulgy crossly. "I'm not carrying silly old vegetables. I'm carrying passengers." Soon, Bulgy looked as good as new. He had been refitted and had a shiny new coat of paint. When he went back to his field, he tooted proudly at the hens. "We'll start in the morning," said his driver. "Good night, Bulgy." Bulgy smiled happily. That night, Bulgy dreamed about how smart he would look in the morning, full of passengers. But the hens missed their old home. One by one, they crept into his luggage racks and soon were fast asleep. In the morning, Bulgy set off bright and early to pick up his first passengers. There were lots of people waiting. "All aboard," tooted Bulgy, and he set off for Knapford Station. He drove so smoothly that the sleeping hens didn't wake up. Trevor was on the road ahead, chugging along slowly. "Get a move on, slow coach," called Bulgy. "Importantly, I've got passengers on board." Bulgy started to overtake Trevor, but suddenly he saw the mail truck coming the other way. "Oh no!" cried Bulgy. Bulgy swerved and missed the mail truck, but the swerving woke the hens up and they were very frightened. They slapped and they squawked loudly. "Stop!" complained the passengers. "We want to get off." The passengers were furious. They were covered in feathers and broken eggs. Bulgy was covered in eggs and feathers too. He had to go to the washdown to be cleaned. "Horrid hens, pesky passengers," grumbled Bulgy. "It's not my fault." "We've been repaired now," said Thomas. "We'll be carrying passengers again soon." "But the farmer still needs a van to carry his vegetables," sighed Emily. That gave Bulgy an idea. "I don't like hens or passengers," Bulgy told the Fat Controller. "Could I help the farmer instead?" The Fat Controller chuckled. Now Thomas and Emily were back, he had enough engines to carry passengers. "All right, Bulgy," he said. "You'll be the island's only vegetable stand on wheels." And that's just what happened. Bulgy was repainted and lots of people came to buy vegetables from him. Sometimes Bulgy sees Thomas with carriages full of passengers, but he's not jealous. He likes working with vegetables they don't lay eggs, and they never complain. And that's the end of the story about Bulgy riding again.